Dr. Susan Love is our next speaker. Dr. Love is the founder of the Dr. Susan Love Foundation for Breast Cancer Research, and she is fiercely dedicated to finding the causes and working on preventative measures for the disease. So Susan, please take it away.
Okay.
While waiting, we'll play some people geography. I am a very, very old friend of a colleague of yours.
Ah.
An old colleague of yours, Neil Parker.
Oh, yes, of course. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, say hello. Yeah.
Well, I used to,
Okay.
many years ago when I lived in Los Angeles, I used to run with Neil around UCLA campus.
Aha. Yeah, I used to run too in my youth. Did you get it?
Dr. Love, while we have a minute, we also want to thank you very much for rebranding your research efforts.
The Army. Yeah, the Love Research
the Army. We love it.
Good, 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 good. Yes, it was time to do so.
Yep.
It was time to do so. So, and
Yeah,
it was in honor of our 10th anniversary.
Wonderful.
What great change then.
Yeah.
Ah, there we go.
We got.
Okay. Oh, shoot, there we go. Look at that. Just like we knew we were doing. Okay, so slide down to the, so that's the title. And this is our, Dr. Susan Love Research Foundation. We want a future without breast cancer by engaging the public and scientific communities in innovative research. Keep going. So the key thing is that I think is critical is that breast cancer tends to be a human disease. The only other, it doesn't happen in rats. It does happen in domesticated, unspayed dogs and macaque monkeys. So humans, macaque monkeys, and domesticated dogs, and that's it. So if we're really going to understand it, we have to understand it in humans, and we need it in all humans. So men, women, transgender, cisgender, everybody. And so, keep going. We started the Army of Women 10 years ago, and now it is, as you know, we changed the name to the Love Research Army to reflect the inclusivity and fact that women are not the only ones involved in this disease. So we really want to get that message out. And you can easily sign up. So anybody who isn't can just sign up. You just give us your email, and then you'll get our emails. What happens is researchers come to us to help them recruit. We vet their studies. We encourage them always to include men, but sometimes it's already been through the IRB and they can't change it in the first time around. But we do, I just want you to know that we every time they try to do it, we tell them that they should be including men. And then we blast it out to everybody, and we hope that you'll share it widely. And so that's how we're getting more research on people. New slide. So we need to go, but what we need to understand is human breasts and all human breasts. And we really don't know. It's the only organ we don't know the anatomy of. It's an amazing organ. It's the only organ that you're not born with, male or female. I mean, you're born with stem cells behind the nipple, and that's it. If you're female or taking female hormones, then you can develop into breasts. It doesn't usually happen till puberty, and then every month it's at the ready. And then when you get pregnant, it turns into a milk factory, and the milk changes depending on the age of the kid. And then after that, you have massive cleanup, involution, and then ready for the next kid. And then with menopause in women, you have retirement. Literally, they start retiring towards your navel. But basically, the breast goes through more changes than any other organ in our body in women, and we don't know very much about them, nor do we know very much about the breast in men. We think breast cancer starts in the milk duct, and on the far side you can see DCIS within a wall of a duct. In the middle is a is a slide of DCIS. And instead of being a nice duct with only one layer of cells, you can see how it looks like it's got a whole lot of layers. And then on the far side, you can see a ductogram where dye was put into a duct, and you can see how complicated the duct is. Next slide. But the human male breast is even more unexplored. So we don't know how many ducts there are in the human male breast. We don't know whether they look like the ducts of, say, a prepubescent girl, or are they unique in their own right. We don't know what the microbiome of the breast is. You know, they did the human microbiome study where they studied they mapped the DNA of all these different parts of the body. They subtracted the human, and then they saw what was left, and they could say, oh, we have this bacteria here and this virus here, but they didn't do the breast. Now the breast gets sucked on by all kinds of people, and you know it's got bacteria and viruses in it. And could they be related to breast cancer? They certainly could, but we don't know because we haven't looked at it. We don't know the relationship of the outside of the duct, the stuff that the duct is suspended in, to the duct itself. Is it caused by that neighborhood, or is the cancer caused just by like within the duct? And we don't know whether we should be studying the duct, the breast, or both breasts. Next slide. Just slide up. So mapping the breast, take 2. Next slide. So we got this, there's this machine in Northern California, or a company in Northern California called QT Ultrasound. And what they do is you lay on your stomach, and it doesn't, this picture has a woman, but you could be a man, and your breast hangs down into that, is hanging into water. And then sound waves are directed across it, and they measure the interference. So it's speed of sound transmission ultrasound, no radiation at all, and it can be done on anybody. Next slide. So here is the first ever 3D printing of human breast duct in the middle. And that is a 64-year-old woman, and she's laying on her stomach, so her nipple is pointing towards the table. And then that really straight thing going up is a vein. And then you can see that towards the armpit, you've got more ducts going up, and it's like you have an outer circle and an inner circle. And you can see that in my diagram over here, to the left of your screen. You can see there's middle group of ducts, and there's ducts on the side. Now, it's probably true that there's something similar, although much less in men, but we have no idea because nobody's looked. So we are going to look at men. We're going to get one of these machines. Actually, we were talking to them today. They're going to loan us a machine, and we're just going to study a whole lot of people, not women at different ages, different parts of their cycle, but also men, and see if we can figure out how much duct is there, how much if the layout is the same. My guess is it probably is, but we don't know yet. And I'll come back to maybe your meeting. Well, it depends when the pandemic lifts, whether I'll have it by next year or the year after. But I'll come back and tell you, because when we start recruiting, we're going to recruit. We're very interested to see what men's ducts look like, and then what men who have breast cancer, if there's a difference than men who don't have breast cancer. So now go up and change next slide. So using it, we'll get images of men and women to map the ductal system, and then that'll allow us, then the next step where I want to take it is then if you saw something on this ultrasound, you could then cannulate the duct. You could put a little Novocaine in the nipple. I've done it to myself. It sounds bad, but it's really not so bad, because the nipple itself, not the areola, is tough and doesn't have many nerves because it's meant to be chewed on by lovers and babies and people. So you put a little Novocaine there, and then you can thread this catheter down the duct, and you could sample the fluid in that duct. You could do a liquid biopsy. And then if you saw abnormal cells, you could squirt the treatment down the duct, like Drano, and clean it out. And then you'd be done. And then you could monitor it with ultrasound. So I think we could get to a point where we really could figure out and then we could figure out what makes the duct that gets it different than the other duct. You know, is there a different microbiome? Next slide, just slide up. And here is a slide we did on the human microbiome, and we looked at nipple aspirate fluid. So in this case, what we did is we massaged the breast, we put a suction cup on the nipple, and we got a drop of fluid, and then we analyzed it for DNA of bacteria and viruses. What you do is you basically, you map all the DNA and RNA, you subtract the human, and you see who's left. And that's how you find out what bacteria and viruses. And what we found was that the breast cancer duct, which is green, had a completely different set of bacteria and viruses in it than the normal duct. So there could be a bacteria or virus that actually causes breast cancer in men and women, and we'll find out. This is the woman is just showing you that when they did the human microbiome project, they didn't do the breast in men and women either. They didn't do it in either men or women. Next slide. So how can we better understand male breast cancer? Well, first of all, obviously, we need to encourage researchers to include men unless there's a real cogent reason not to. And we try to do that through the Army of Women, and we're trying to figure out ways to get earlier in the process. So before they get it through their IRB and all that stuff, they've actually thought about it and included men. And we make it easy for researchers to find men for research with the Love Research Army, and identify questions that are unique to the male breast cancer, which would be, what's the microbiome of the male breast? What ductal fluid markers are there? Because there are ducts there. What are the hormone levels in the ducts? What hormones? And then, very importantly, one study that we did previously was on people with metastatic disease, was collateral damage from treatment. And I think I had leukemia 8 years ago, AML, and I had a bone marrow transplant for my baby sister. Thank God I'm here. But it taught me a lesson that I hadn't realized before, which is the collateral damage of treatment. We euphemistically in the medical profession call it side effects, but side effects is too mild a word for the consequences of the surgery, the radiation, the drugs, the hormones, and the long-term ones, that it's not time limited. It's not like just when you're taking the drugs. All these treatments have long-term consequences as well. And I think the best way to figure that out, and we tried this with people with metastatic disease, is we asked them in free text. We said, tell us your collateral damage. So instead of making a questionnaire of what I thought they would have, we just said, tell us whatever you want. Give us, and they would write it. And then using artificial intelligence these days, you can sort things into all kinds of categories. And then you can start to identify what are the problems that are bothering them that may or may not have even occurred to the researchers, the drug developers, to look at. And this particularly hasn't been done in men because men is a smaller population and the drugs are often not even tested, as you well know, in men. So the collateral damage in men is totally unstudied. And this is something, I mean, we'd be happy to maybe partner with you on a study where we looked at putting out free text, to men of what their collateral damage of treatment were of breast cancer, and then trying to analyze it and figure out and come up with a report so that people would understand, not just the people with the cancer are going to get the treatments, but the people treating them who have no idea and dismiss it. Anyway, they're sort of, they say, you're lucky to be alive and, shut up. But at least that's what they say to me. And I'm sure they say it to you too. But we could figure that out, because maybe all of those consequences don't have to happen. And we don't know. And maybe giving the drugs slightly differently could change it. Or maybe, you know, not combining them would change it. But if you don't know what the problems are, you're not going to know what the answers are. So that is my short. I first was told 10 minutes and 5 minutes, but I'm happy to answer questions about anything you want to ask me.
Absolutely.
If I don't know the answer, I'll make it up.
That's great. So who has questions?
I have,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, you mentioned doing a study on collateral damage. How many men would you need for a study like that?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing you want to do is just find out what their experience is. So I would just put it out to as many as you could get, and then see and say, this is what we started with our metastatic study. We just said, tell us your collateral damage, and I think we limited it. We said in 2 sentences or less, or something like that, so that we didn't want a whole book. But so that we got a sense of what really were the problems. And they weren't always the problems that the medical profession pays attention to. Like, I know part of my collateral damage is I lost taste and smell. So I can't taste anything. And they don't consider that collateral damage, but it sure does impact the quality of your life. And I miss it a lot, actually. And so I think the thing to do is to your population, just put out a free test question, give them some limitation, you know, don't give us more than a paragraph, or don't give us more than whatever you want to, and then I know some people that can help analyze it if you're interested in doing this, and we can throw it out towards the Army of Women as well and see if we get other people. And then that gives you a sense of what the experience is. Then you can make a questionnaire from that, and then you can put the questionnaire out and see how many people, what percentage have this and what percentage have that. If that makes sense.
I think that's a great idea. We actually, I mean, I know a lot of the complaints that we've gotten from some of the men have been the side effects of the tamoxifen, which women are all too, you know,
right,
familiar with, on not even being a breast cancer survivor, where you get hot sweats. So, but the men are not handling them well, and in some cases actually have stopped the tamoxifen altogether. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
And there may be, you know, there may be ways to deal with that, or there may be, or alternatives. I mean, you know, but if you don't identify it as a problem to the medical profession, I mean, because then it's never going to get fixed, because they're just going to do what they do. I mean, I could say that.
Beth, go ahead.
Go ahead, Beth.
We can't hear you again, Beth.
We can't hear you, Beth.
Oh, no.
There you go. No,
still can't hear you.
No, she had troubles before.
I know it.
Can you add it into the
Type it
chat
into
box?
the chat. Type it into the chat. Okay, we'll do that.
Susan,
okay.
Susan, at one of the metastatic conferences that I attended, I asked one of the doctors why, when they do the mice studies, do they do these studies on female mice only? And the doctor actually looked at me real puzzled and said, you know what, that's a good question.
Yeah. Well, you know, the reason partly is when you're doing research, the more homogeneous you can make your research population, the easier you can make conclusions. So if everybody is the same except for one thing, you know, like everybody, then you can say, oh, okay, so therefore, you know, that one thing might cause this or maybe cause that. But so that's why they like to do it that way. They want to have everything under control and only have one variable. Mice are easier to control than people. But in actual fact, life isn't that way, and we're not all the same. And so if we're really going to, you know, get a hint of what is going on, particularly in things like collateral damage, which you can't use mice for, collateral damage in people, then you got to study people with all their things, and then you'll get a hint, and then you maybe say, oh, it seems like only the old people are having, ingrown toenails, and then you'll do a study just in old people with, but until you do start, you're not even going to know where to look.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Did we get Beth's question? Here's Beth's question. That was fascinating. Thank you. I have just finished a study as part of my PhD, and the treatment effects were a constant thread in the findings, and for a number of the men were hard than the scarring from the mastectomy.
Yeah. No, I think so. My collateral damage, the chemo brain is and they finally did a study in people with AML and chemo, and they documented that indeed the chemo brain is real, which we all could have told them, but they weren't sure whether you fast forward a few years, like your brain, everybody's brain is deteriorating. So if you think of the curve going down, do you fast forward 5 years and then go with everybody else, or do you drop to a lower curve and then deteriorate like everybody else? But at least they showed it was real, which makes you feel a little bit better when you can't remember anything, although not a lot.
All of us, exactly.
At least you have something to blame.
That's right. True.
Yeah. Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, when Dr. Love gets the machine, I'd like to volunteer because I still have one breast left to map.
Oh,
male
that would be
breast.
great. Okay.
Excellent,
Okay.
Michael.
Well, I will let you guys know once we start, because
Right.
the problem now we have with the pandemic is we have the place to put it. They're going to loan us a machine. We got all that stuff, but then you can't ask healthy people to come into an office when there's a pandemic going on. It's one thing if you have a medical problem. So we really have to wait until we get there. But I will get you, Michael. Don't worry.
I'm happy to fill in the other half.
Brett will fill in his other half.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I can definitely attest to the fact that Dr. Love, when she puts out her research studies, I drive her absolutely crazy. I say to her, why are men included? Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Love,
Okay,
can I
sure.
ask a question out of more of a curiosity? We had a cat and she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I hadn't had her fixed originally because she was indoors. We only had one cat. When we went to get our second cat, I had her fixed, but she'd gone into heat. The vet had always told me if I had her fixed and she never went into heat, she would never probably have gotten breast cancer.
Yeah.
That's just a curiosity for my own mind. Is that true?
Yeah. If we had
Yes.
our ovaries out. Then before we started menstruating, we wouldn't get breast cancer. Probably.
Okay. I was just kind of curious because it was so weird how our cat got breast cancer soon after my husband Bob did, and she was like our mascot, and we went through chemo, and unfortunately she didn't make it, but it was interesting though, just how it's like, what are the odds?
Yeah.
But thank you.
We had a dog. Dogs get it too. Yeah.
Okay, Sherry Matthews, you have a question?
Yes, Dr. Love, I'm a huge fan. I would like to know your thoughts on PET scan where you have glucose and radioactive iodine being uptake by the tumor. Why can't they put in a already enemy towards fast-growing cells inside of this glucose that is readily, uptake into a fast-growing cells? If you can do it for a PET scan, why can't we do it for medicinal reasons?
Well, it's a good question, and I don't know exactly, but my guess is that glucose is taken up by a lot of other organs, not just cancer. So there are other things that may be fast growing besides cancers, and so the question would really be the safety. How could you control where the drug got concentrated?
But how does the radioactive iodine only choose cancer tumors to do backscattering diagnostics, and it's not your other fast-growing organs, brain or liver? It glows up like a Christmas tree on wherever cancer is.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough I'm a humble surgeon, and I don't know enough of how that works. I'd have to look it up. But I will. I'll look it up after we finish. And
okay, or radioactive seeds for
to Peggy, and she can.
Yeah, just email and I'll connect you to. That'll be
or
great.
radioactive seeds put in at the time of even biopsy, like they do prostate cancer. I've never understood why they don't specifically kill from the inside out like they do prostate cancer. Why do we have to? Huh?
Yeah, that's why I'm hoping that with what we'll be able to do once we have this with the mapping, being able to do the map, you know exactly what duct the cancer's in. Then you could put radioactive seeds down that duct. Or even with a scope, you could scope, because the problem right now when you do that is you see these two openings. You need a Google map for the to know whether you turn right or left. But now having this ability to do this mapping, we'll be able to do a map ahead of time, and then you'll know it can guide you right where it is, and you might be able to zap it either with a scope or get us directly to that area where it is and do it. So I think it's going to open up a lot of opportunities.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Lev.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Susan, I want to say hi to you. I'm glad to see that you're so well and looking so wonderful. I didn't realize you guys were running so far ahead of schedule, because I signed on to hear your talk and I got to the end of it. And anyway, so I'm sorry I missed your talk. Susan and I have a long history. I first met her in the 1980s. Your daughter had just been born in late 80s, and you were still in Boston. And you said, GJ, let me show you the draft of my book that I'm working on. And I remember that fondly. So good to see you, Susan. It really is great to see you.